anyways, Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20. We've got an incredible section that we are starting on. This is a long section. We're obviously not going to cover the entire section this morning. But this section will start here in Exodus 20, and it will go all the way through the end of chapter 31. So it's going to go quite a few chapters. What happens at this point is that Moses goes up, he's up on Mount Sinai, and he begins to receive instructions from God. And it begins with the 10 commandments. So the commandments are given, and then we will see the people calling for Moses. Commandments given, then they're calling for Moses. We'll find out why. And then we'll see at the end, a few construction warnings. Okay? A few construction warnings. But let's pick it up in verse 1 with the commandments given. And God spoke all these words. Now, it's important for you and I, the basics, right? You gotta make sure that we got the basics down. It's God who is speaking all of these words. This was not Moses formulating these things on his own. It was God speaking. Verse 1, and God spoke all these words, saying, he says this, he declares this at the beginning, I am the Lord your God. That's who I am. And then he tells them what he's done, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. So it's important to keep in mind who is in charge or who the authority is. You and I used to, when I was, way back, when I was young, way back in the 1900s, there were times when I would be disruptive or disobedient or disrespectful to my parents. That did happen in Pastor Chris's life. Because I don't know if you knew this or not, but Pastor Chris was not born a pastor. Okay? So I wasn't like born and they, kind of gave me the, papal blessing, like you will be a pastor. That didn't happen. I didn't get saved till I was 20. So, when I was younger and then into my teens, there were times when we would get into it. Okay? And the reason that happens, or the reason that happened for me is because I would, in that moment, it would be like temporary insanity is basically what it was. You see, when I was disobedient to my parents, it is because I forgot who they were. I forgot that they had brought me into this world. I forgot that for many, many years that they had supported me and kept me alive. That they had done so much for me. And when I would forget that, then what would happen is I would feel entitled. Like, hey, you guys owe me something. And then I would be like, after the ordeal, then I would remember, I would be back in my right mind and be like, oh, wait, you guys don't owe me anything. I owe you everything, because even if you guys owed me something, talking to my parents, even if you owed me something, you paid it 1,000,000 times over. It's not, but they didn't owe me anything. But we forget those things, so God establishes that. As he's about to start giving these instructions, he's going to begin with some rules for living here. But as he does that, he reminds them, this is who I am. I am the Lord your God. I'm yours. But essentially he's saying, I'm in charge. Now, it was God that had brought them into existence. It was God that had rescued them from Egypt, as he goes on to say in verse 2, brought you out of the land of Egypt, and in fact saved them out of slavery. So what he's establishing is, listen, I'm about to give you some rules and some commandments, and I'm going to give you some instructions for living. And before you think, well, you can't tell me what to do, it is important for you to remember, no, he can tell us what to do. He can tell the people what to do because he is their God. It's very helpful for you and I to remember that. Oh, wait a minute. That's right. I belong to God. God, in fact, God created me. There are some people who get angry at God because, well, my mom got sick, or, something happened to my loved one or my friend or whatever, and they think, well, God could have stopped it. Well, yeah, God could stop, or God could start, or God could do whatever he wants because he is God. And so we can't be angry at him because he's got the authority to do whatever it is that he pleases. Now, you may get angry at him for doing what he pleases, You may not like what he does, but he's got the right to do it. Because he is, as he says here in verse 2, I am the Lord your God, I've rescued you. He also wants to establish in their hearts and minds that he is not trying to oppress them. He loves them. That is why he brought them out of the land of Egypt, out of slavery. I did that because I'm so passionately in love with you, is essentially what God is saying here. And it's no different for you and I. God loves you and I passionately, with all of our faults, all of our mistakes, all of our blemishes. God loves us. And so there are times when he tells us what to do, how to respond, how to act, how to conduct ourselves. And he's about to do that. Now, he begins in verse 3. Now, you will notice, normally on our screens, I would start putting points on there. I didn't do that because there are 10 of them. And by the time I got done, they would be real tiny. But they don't need a lot of explanation. You guys have heard these before, but if you're taking notes, you might want to just write down. I've got some, I kind of simplified them a little bit, but some of them, they don't need to be simplified. Verse 3, here's what he begins with. Verse 3, now that it's established that I'm the Lord, I love you, I saved you, you shall have no other gods before me. Okay? You shall have no other gods before me. It almost sounds like you shall have no other gods before me. So put me first and then you can have other gods. That's not what he's saying. He is saying God only. So if you're taking notes and you want to take that down, you might just say, hey, God only. No one else. Okay? I'm not going to put anybody else before God, nothing else before God. The second thing he says in verse 4 is, you shall not make for yourself a carved image. So I wrote no idols. So I've got the first commandment, God only. The second commandment, no idols. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, showing mercy to thousands to those who love me and keep my commandments. Now we'll get into verses 5 and 6 and what he's talking about there, but let's real quickly look at verse 4. You shall not make for yourself a carved image. Now why does God have to tell his people, the Israelites, why does he have to tell them not to make images? Does anybody have a wild guess as to why God would be telling them not to make idols? Evan. I didn't catch all of that. What did you say at the very beginning?
Because whenever they think God's not listening to them, they make
Oh, okay. Yes, like the golden calf. That's coming up. Several chapters from now, but it'll be coming up. Listen, the Israelites were being saved from Egypt. Okay? They were surrounded, inundated by idols. They were all over the place. Not only statues and figures, but paintings and artwork and everything there. You may remember, as we were going through Exodus early on, you may remember that there was a god for the sun, one for the moon, one for the river, one for the land, one for the insects, one for the cattle, whatever. They had gods for everything. And they had images for all of those. Okay? Now keep that in mind. All of these people that he's talking to, they were born into, they grew up surrounded by all of that. They've lived their entire lives in that type of environment. Now think about this. Does anybody know where God is taking these people now that he's saved them from Egypt? Does anybody remember where they're going to? Levi. The Promised Land. Does anybody know what land that's called at the time that we're reading that? Yes. What is it? Help me out. What is that?
You said the land of milk and honey.
Yes, the land of milk and honey, Canaan. Now, in Canaan, there are Canaanites. There are lots of different people there, but the people that are there are all idolatrous. So God is he's taking his people out of an idol worshiping world, and he's actually sending them into another land where there will be more idols there. Now, God has a plan to get rid of all of those idols in the promised land, in this land called Canaan, in this land of milk and honey. God's got a plan. But God already knows that they will not follow his plan to a T. So there will be people left there who are idolatrous. God knows this. So he's trying to get them in the mindset that, hey, no idols. No idols. Okay? That's a hard one. That's a hard it's a hard point for you and I to get into our minds. You go, us? We don't worship idols. But I want you to think about it. I want you to think about it. I want you to think about the things that we prop up as idols today. It might be people. It might be people that we give our attention, our love, our admiration to. Now, it's good to give attention, love, and admiration. However, we may be giving those things to this individual more than we're giving them to God. We are obviously to love one another, but there is that sense in which we can put someone above God, put them up on, and treat them like an idol. But there are other things. What does our world, what does our community, or especially we're here in Southern California, what do we idolize? What are some things that we idolize? Anybody? What are some things that we idolize? Not just us, but our society as a whole. James held up his what? What'd you have? His phone. Certainly, right? The phone can certainly take precedence over everything. You ever been talking to somebody? This happens all the time. You're talking to somebody and they're like, and they're like, basically what they're saying is, you are so boring, I need to look at my phone. Right? Now, it's not that you're boring necessarily, but they're so attached to it. It's hard for me too. I've got this phone with me all of the time. All of the time. What other things might we idolize? Sports. Yes. Sports. We certainly can idolize athletes and put them above God. Okay? What else? What else? Yes. Food? Absolutely. Did you guys know that? That food can actually become an idol, right? Thanksgiving, what are we thinking about? Man, I'm trying so hard at Thanksgiving to stay focused on the Lord. Yes, God, thank you so much for this big, brown, beautiful turkey and mashed potatoes and gravy. And I get so excited about the food. There's a struggle there. What else? Money. Yes. Money. We can be so consumed with the money. So concerned. And money, obviously you need money to conduct your business and to live your life. You got to pay for things. I get it. But we all understand that that can become an idol. What else? Do you have something else? You're going to say money, okay? And then money oftentimes in lots of different ways. What about cars? Is anybody in here just dreaming? You can just hardly wait till you make your first million and you buy yourself a Yugo. Had to be James, didn't it? You guys are looking like, what is a Yugo? Exactly. Nobody in here wants a Yugo, okay? Even the makers of Yugo don't want a Yugo. Okay, I don't even think they make them anymore. But Yugos were these funky little cars, back in I think the 80s, 90s. I don't know. They may have been even older than that. But little Yugo. Nobody's thinking about that. Why? We're not thinking about that because, man, you've got a car that you want. And it's okay to want a car. Don't let me put a trip on you. It's okay to want a car, especially a specific kind of car. Some of you guys, the guys, might want I can hardly wait to get that little, JDM, little racer and put a pipe on it, make it real loud and, drive that thing around. Some of you are thinking about, I really want this kind of 4x4, kind of off-road, whatever. Some of you are thinking different things. Some of you ladies might already have something in your mind, I really want, this kind of car or whatever. And we can oftentimes put those things above God. So you and I are actually surrounded by idolatry. It may not necessarily be in statues or images, but it oftentimes can be. But oftentimes we can find that it's in other things, other man-made things that we idolize. So you and I have got to be careful. God was telling them, hey, no idols. And then he goes on to say, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Because people will make gods out of all these things. Something that's from heaven. Angels can be idolized. People will there are many people that believe that they can communicate with their guardian angel. And they actually go to their guardian angel before they go to God. It's wrong. Okay? He goes on to say, or anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath. So we ought not be idolizing anything that, comes from the earth itself. Like a tree. I just love you, tree. Right? We got to be careful. Is it okay to save the trees? Absolutely it is. Trees are beautiful. Trees are a good thing. And it's okay, even as a Christian, to want to save the trees. But you and I have to keep in mind their place in our world. Trees are important, right? They produce oxygen. These are good things. But we can't be so consumed with that we put that before God. And the last thing he mentions is, or that is in the water under the earth. So there can't be any idols for these people. You can't make an idol, that's some kind of god of, the ocean or the sea life or something like that. And so we've got to be careful about all of those things. You know that this verse, actually verse 4, is the reason why many Jews do not believe that Jesus is the Messiah. Like, what? You shall not make for yourself a carved image of any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water. What are you talking about? See, many of the Jews say, no, God did not come down as a man in the form of Jesus. God would not do that. Because God made a rule that you shall not make for yourself any likeness of anything that is in heaven above. So no, God would not have done that. And we go, wait, what? That kind of sounds... No. What he's talking about here is man-made things. Things that were made with our own hands. God did send his son Jesus in the form of a man. Philippians 2 tells us all about it. But he was not fashioned by human hands. That's something that God did miraculously. So don't let anybody fool you on that. We've got to be careful, what we are idolizing. Verse 5. He says, you shall not bow down to them. So don't make them and don't bow down to them or serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. Okay? But don't bow down to them. Don't worship them. I used to call myself a Catholic when I was growing up. And you go into a Catholic church, there's idols all over the place. They're in the stained glass windows. They're at the altar. They're on your way in. They're in front of, they're outside. There's statues all over the place. And there are all sorts of things that people do to worship those statues. You might have candles with the image of some idol on there. And those might be in church, but they might also be at your house. Many of our Catholic friends, they take those candles, put them in their house, light them, say prayers to those things. What he's saying here is, no, that's wrong. Don't do that. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them. You ever been into, you ever gone to get Chinese food? And you see, I like Chinese food. How many of you like Chinese food? People after my own heart. Chinese food is so good, okay? But have you ever been into a Chinese food restaurant, and you've seen their little Buddha there? Sometimes it's a little bit bigger, sometimes a little bit smaller. They got their little statue, a bronze statue, and you'll normally notice that they have some incense, like some burned incense on there, the sticks, because they've burned incense to their idol. There might be some coins in there. There might be other things in there. It's idolatry. Okay? What does that mean? Should we not, eat at that place? Well, that's a decision that you need to make. If you feel like, oh man, they're supporting idolatry, we shouldn't go there. There are Chinese restaurants that don't have a Buddha. In fact, there was a time when there was a Chinese restaurant near our house that we went to one time, and I noticed that there was no Buddha. And as we're paying, I said, hey, you guys don't have a Buddha here. And the lady said, no, Buddha, we're Christians. I'll be back, right? Chinese food and Christians. So it's a choice that you make, but the idea is that we ought not be worshiping anything other than God. Verse 5, you shall not bow down to them nor serve them. Why? For I, the Lord your God, this throws a lot of people off. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. What does that mean? Does that mean that God is like just trivial and he's just so worldly and he's jealous and we're not supposed to be jealous and God is jealous, so that must mean that he's got some kind of fault or shortcoming? Is that what that means? Well, obviously you and I know that can't be what it means. So what does it mean? The fact that he's a jealous God, it means that he wants the worship alone. He knows that he deserves it. It's his, and he wants that alone. Don't give it to anyone else. Now, at first we may think, well, that just doesn't sound right. Why is he being that way? Well, because he created these people. Because he saved them from Egypt. Because he saved them from slavery. So if anyone deserves it, it's God that deserves it. So for him to say, I am a jealous God, I love it. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. He wants the worship alone. And he says, visiting the iniquity of the fathers, the sins of the fathers, the disobedience of the fathers, upon the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. Now that sounds like God is going to punish kids if their parents were disobedient. Is that what God does? Well, he goes on to give some clarity in verse 6. But showing mercy to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. The idea is that if my dad was disobedient to him, and I follow in my dad's footsteps, as we oftentimes do, that God will continue. He will judge my dad. He'll judge me. If my son is the same way, he'll judge my son. However, at verse 6, if at some point one of those family, even though my dad might have been disobedient to God and might have been judged by God, however, there's still the opportunity for me to experience God's mercy. Verse 6, but showing mercy to thousands. Notice, to those who love me and keep my commandments. So if I love God and keep his commandments, then I will experience God's mercy, regardless of what my dad did. So don't take this as, man, it's a curse and there's no way to get out of it and your family's just doomed forever because, great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpa, way back in whenever, he was just so disobedient and sinful and now our family just doesn't have a chance. Does that sound like God, that's the way God works? No. God is merciful to those that want mercy, those that will love him. Okay? So we have God only, no idols. Verse 7. Respect God's name. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. For the Lord will not hold guiltless who takes his name in vain. Pastor David Guzik, I know you don't know who he is, but he's an excellent teacher, says this, that there are 3 ways that this commandment is most commonly violated. Number 1, profanity. Using the name of God in blasphemy and cursing. You guys, I don't have to give any examples. You heard it yourselves. Okay? The second way is frivolity, frivolous. Using the name of God in a superficial, I'd like this, in a superficial, stupid way. How's that for a Bible teacher? Technical term there, stupid. Okay? Using the name of God in a superficial, stupid way. Throwing it out there as a way to gain something from it. As you guys and girls get older, you will have you will have salesmen talk to you. I've owned. Well, I don't own a home. I'll own it several years from now. But I've been buying a home for a long time, and so we'll get salesmen come and want to talk to us about, hey, we want to sell you some new windows, or you really need a new chimney, or you really need a new whatever. And they'll always get around to, because they want to know how much money I have to spend. So they'll say, so what do you do for work? Just trying to make small talk, of course. What do you do for work? And I'll say, I'm a pastor, an assistant pastor, okay? And then it's kind of like, he doesn't have too much money. But oftentimes when they hear that, they'll say, oh, really? What church is it? Oh, yeah, because, me and my family, we go to church on, Sunday at such and such a place. Or they will immediately take the name of God and use it in a frivolous way. They'll throw it out there some superficial way, some stupid way. So be careful. Profanity, frivolity. There's a third way that David Guzik says that this commandment is most commonly violated, and that is hypocrisy. Claiming the name of God, but acting in a way that disgraces him. Instagram. How many Instagram feeds have you come across where you read their description and it says something like God first, or my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, or they've got some kind of Bible verse on there, and what they're doing is they're telling you, hey, God is important to me. But then as you begin to look at their pictures, it's like, this person said God first, but why are they smoking that? That does not look like, I don't think that they should be smoking that. Or she said God first, or something about Jesus, Lord and Savior, or a Bible verse, but why is she taking pictures like that? That does not seem godly to me. So it's using the name of God in a hypocritical way. All of you have seen awards shows. Okay? I used to love awards shows. I don't so much anymore. For lots of different reasons. But it's not uncommon to see some artists get up there and, to receive their reward, and they'll say something like, first of all, I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who gave me this gift of writing music or the ability to sing. And it's like you look and you think, wait a minute. I don't think that your music is glorifying to the Lord at all. You sing about sex, money, drugs, and now you're going to try and blame that on God? It's a violation of this commandment. It's hypocritical. Claiming the name of God, but acting in a way that disgraces him. No. What do we have? God only, no idols, respect God's name. Verse 8, number 4. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. What time is it? We started at 9:45, right? Whew, this is taking longer than I thought it was. We might have to cut it in half here. Verse 8, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Now listen, before we go anywhere with this commandment, listen to what all you have to do is just stop and listen to what he says. People get all worked up about these things. Just stop and listen. Read it one more time. He says, remember the Sabbath day. To do what? Fusion, help me out. What does it say there? To what? To keep it holy. To keep it holy. You see, people will take these commandments, man, and then they will they'll make it so much more than it actually is. Do you know that the Jews, over time, developed their own set of rules from this set of rules? Crazy things. Like, on the Sabbath, you can't do anything. And they had all of these rules like a man, I don't remember right now as I was reading, I can't remember specifically, but it was crazy stuff like, a man, can't carry a bucket on the Sabbath. Yes. Yeah, there was a certain distance that they could not walk. He can't do this. However, a woman can. So, hey, it's your turn. It's the Sabbath. Go out and go get water. Or, they had all of these crazy rules that they came up with. God never said any of that. Notice what he says. Remember the Sabbath day. Now, what is the Sabbath? The Sabbath is the seventh day. Well, he'll tell us what it is in just a moment. But notice what the goal is in verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day. Remember what about it? To keep it holy. Does anybody know what the word holy means?
Set apart.
What is it?
Set apart.
Set apart. Yes. Keep the day separate from the rest. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Verse 9. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter. Look what God says here. This is important in verse 10. Nor your male servant. Wait a minute. They had servants? They did. And God was okay with that? Evidently so. Nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who was within your gates. Now listen, God knew that they had servants. Do you know? I gotta be careful. Gotta be careful not to get caught up in this. Did you know that every country, probably every people group throughout history, at some point or another, has experienced or been involved in slavery? How many of you knew that? How many of you you know a little bit about history? Yes. So many societies down through history have been involved in slavery. The Jews came out of slavery. They themselves had servants. But note what God is doing here. God is saying, listen, treat them well. Include them in this Sabbath rest. Don't say, well, it would be unholy for me to work, so servant, get yourself out there and work. Didn't say that. He says, no, you give them the day off. Care for them. Treat them right. In it, you shall do no work. What does that mean? Does that mean that, man, it's the Sabbath? I'm so bummed out because I'd really like some scrambled eggs, but I'm not allowed to work, so I can't feed myself. I just got to lay down in my bed and just starve all day. Is that what God wanted? No, that's not what he's saying. Come on. What he's saying is that you ought not conduct business as usual the way that you would do the other 6 days. Take a day of rest. I like that. Just take a day of rest. Don't do any work. Don't allow your family, your servants to work, not even your animals. Give them the day off. And if a stranger who is within your gates, in other words, if a stranger comes to hang out with you, they're passing through, tell them, hey, relax. Just relax. We're not doing any other work today. We'll eat. We'll just do whatever we have to. We don't, But this is a day that's set apart in order to do what? What was the goal of this day? Anybody remember from verse 8? To keep it holy. Keep it separate. Keep a day of rest where I'm thinking about God. I'm meditating on God. Meditating means to think about him, consider him, all of his ways, who he is, what he's done. I'm thinking about his goodness to me. So I'm to spend the day doing that. Resting my body, resting my workforce, focused on God, keeping it holy. It's a day of worship, a day of focusing on God, giving him an entire day. He says in verse 11, why are we to do this? For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Therefore, the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. So we're taking God's example. He rested on the seventh day. Is that because, oh man, that was really hard creating all those people and the oceans and the mountains and all of those things. Whew. Can you imagine God sweating? Whew. Is that why? No. Because God was done creating. And he was setting an example. Let's take a break. And that seventh day is just for God. People go crazy with rules at times. There's either the attitude of, man, I'm going to break all these rules, you can't tell me what to do, Or let's take these rules and let's really, put them into, let's just really burden the people. During the Victorian era, some of you may be somewhat familiar with that from history, one How to Do It Right manual for women was the Book of Etiquette. And in this book of etiquette, it taught putting books by male authors next to books by female authors was forbidden unless the authors were married. So you can't even put a book, a male author next to a female author. Silliness. What? It's crazy. But people oftentimes will take rules and they'll go above and beyond because there are some people that really want. When you have people that really hate rules, there are those that really love rules. How many of you have somebody in your life, like in your family, somebody that you know that is like rule follower, man? They're just not going to break any rules, right? Don't they drive you crazy sometimes? Like you're sitting at a stoplight, you're going on a family trip, it's 3:30 in the morning, you're sitting at a stoplight. Looking in the mirror like there is no, even the Holy Spirit is not out here. Like what are we waiting on, right? And they will not go through that red light. Well, are they justified in doing so? Yes. Yeah, it's a red light. They go through it, they're going to break the law. But it drives you crazy. And there are those who, there could be a million cars out there and they're ready to go through the red light. Lawbreakers. It is important that you and I understand that these commandments, these rules, were not made to be a burden to us. They were not meant to be taken and let me develop 50 other rules to go along with this one. They also were not developed for us to break and just kind of throw to the side, cast away and say, forget you. God makes it very simple. Remember the Sabbath day, the seventh day. Keep it holy. Give God the day. Now, in Colossians 2:16 and 17, Paul said this. So let no one judge you in food or in drink, or regarding a festival, or a new moon, or Sabbaths. He tells us why. He says, which are a shadow of things to come. And then he tells you and I this, but the substance is of Christ. What? What he means is this, that are we supposed to follow this also, like the Sabbath day? And, and then there's a big argument. Is that Saturday or is that Sunday? It's Saturday. The Sabbath officially is Saturday. From Friday night at sundown until Saturday night. Do we have to, follow that? Are we supposed to be doing that? Are we going to hell because we're in church on Sunday? Please. What Paul went on to tell us is that the Sabbath, among other things, festivals, new moons, all these kinds of things, the Sabbath is simply a shadow of what? It's a shadow of Jesus. It was simply a picture of Jesus. You say, I don't get it. Well, here's the point. That we rest in the completed work of Jesus, knowing that we do not have to earn our salvation. For the Old Testament Jews, it was a day of resting in God. For you and I, it is a daily reality that I can rest in the finished work of Jesus. In other words, Jesus has become our Sabbath rest. He went to the cross. He died for my sins, paid for my sins. I receive his free gift of salvation. I'm saved. Not because of something I did, but because of what Jesus did. Is it still a good idea? Does that mean like, hey, you know what, forget the Sabbath, we just do whatever we want? It still is a good idea to take a day to just rest and give to him. Sundays are a good day. So are Mondays. Come to think of it, so are Tuesdays. Wednesdays are a good day to rest. But then so are Thursdays. If you've been at youth group late on Wednesday night, Thursday might be a good day. But then it could be Friday. But then again, maybe it's Saturday. Can't really go anywhere. The point is this, that there are some people who fuss and fight over the Sabbath, when it should be, what we should be doing. In the New Testament, we find out, well, Jesus is our Sabbath. He actually became our Sabbath rest. So then here comes us, the Protestants, the Protestants, the protesters, causing trouble and saying, well, how about we don't just give God one day? How about we just give him all 7 days? You know, the early church, when they first started meeting, they were meeting daily. Church every single day. Some of you would like that right now, especially because there's not a whole lot going on at home. They're like, yeah, let's hook up every day. But the church did that every single... So troublemakers, man. I mean, they were meeting every single day. You're not supposed to do that. You're only supposed to go to church one time a week. And they said, no, man, we love God so much, we're going to just gather every single day. And that's the admonition for you and I, that every day is God's day. And let's be thinking about God every single day. And let's rest in Jesus and his finished work every single day. Celebrate him every day. In fact, everything that I do, if I'm writing a paper, I want to do it to the glory of God. If I'm on the field, you know, a football field, you know, cracking people's helmets, let me do it for the glory of God. If I'm, out, at dance class, then I'm doing it for the glory of God. So we come along and we say, hey, let's just think about God not only every single day, but in every single thing we do. But still, to have one day dedicated, like, hey, man, I'm going to use Sunday, or maybe it's Wednesday, whatever it is, but I'm going to use that one day to I'm going to rest, I'm going to relax, I'm going to be thinking about God. Maybe you grab a book, and that's your one day to, like, you know what, I'm just going to read, man, and learn more about God on that one day. Now, maybe I learn about God on every other day also, but that day, I'm just going to take that, set that aside as man, this is God, this is for me and you, man. Let's just spend some time together. Let's squeeze in one more, because you guys will love this in verse 12. This is where we'll finish for today. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God has given you. You know what that means, to honor your father and your mother? Listen to this, if you're taking notes. You'll want to write this down, because I know you love this. It means to prize your parents. Prize your parents. To understand how valuable they are to you, how precious they are to you. All that they have given up for you. They can't just do whatever they want anymore. When they were young, they used to go out, party, have a good time, eat whatever they wanted to. Now they've got a family. They had to stop living that way. And now they've got to think about their kids first. They can't just go out and buy gifts for themselves at Christmas time. Now they got to go out and buy gifts for everybody else in the family. They can't just sit down and feed themselves. And then you come in like, oh, I haven't eaten in 3 days, Mom. So what? Boil some pine needles off of the tree. See if I care. No way, man. She hooks you up, man. Can of raviolis, whatever, some top ramen, a bit of chili sauce in there, hooks you up. She's always taking care of you. Prize your parents. For me personally, share a little bit of personal info with you as we close. This is going to be the last one. We're going to have to stop here because we're out of time. For me, this is the reason why I never got a tattoo. My dad had one little tattoo that he was embarrassed of. My mom never got him. When we were growing up in my Hispanic family, the community that we grew up in and where my parents grew up and the side of town that they were from, those that got tattoos were the guys who were shooting drugs up into their arms with needles. And they would get the tattoos to cover up their, what they called tracks, the needle marks. So tattoos were associated with that type of a lifestyle. My parents, my mom and dad, were not part of that lifestyle. So they themselves never got tattoos except for my dad's one little tattoo, which, no one would ever know about. But it wasn't something that he put in a prominent place for people to see, and he purposely put it in a place where no one could see it. My mom never got them. So as I grew older, there were times when I wanted to, and then especially as I became a Christian, obviously, thought about this. Honor your father and your mother. And it's just one little thing. I'm just giving you an example. It's one little thing. This has kept me for so many years, so many times from getting a tattoo. Knowing that it just would not be honoring to my mom and to my dad. They wouldn't condemn me. They wouldn't, they wouldn't, badmouth me or anything. But I just figured, what? My mom and dad didn't do it. I want to prize them. I had some wonderful parents growing up. My mom is in heaven. God bless her soul. My dad, I do not know where he's at. But growing up, they were wonderful parents. And this oftentimes kept me from doing that. Now, there are other things. Like, this is part of the reason why I do not drink alcohol. Because my parents used to, and they stopped when they got saved. And so that's another one of those things. So that's the idea, is that I want to prize my parents, honor my mother and father. And then it comes with a promise that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you. He told them, listen, if you will prize your parents, it'll result in a long life, a blessed life. But if you begin to dishonor your parents, you are going to the reasoning is this, or this is the conclusion that we come to. However, if I dishonor my parents, then maybe my days won't be long upon the land. So I should be honoring to them. We're going to stop there. I want you to not walk out of here thinking, man, commandments, rules. Listen, rules are a good thing. When you drive out of this parking lot today with your parents, you are going to be so glad that there are yellow lines out on the road. Because you've seen how your parents drive. And that yellow line will guide them home, right, safely. Like, okay, just stay on this side of the yellow line, Dad. Stay over here on this side of the dotted line, Mom. And you know, see those lines, they keep them from just going headfirst into the other side of the traffic. Keeps everything in order. Rules are a good thing. Don't walk out of here thinking, oh, God's making all these demands and, He's all these commandments. No, He's given us rules for living to keep us safe, to keep us prosperous, to keep us blessed, because He loves us. Father,